No one was ever supposed to find this. The record wasn't simply hidden, it was erased. Burned to ash, the remains scattered through a Louisiana swamp, swallowed by the roots of cypress trees and the jaws of alligators gliding through the dark water. For more than 2 centuries, the secret stayed buried, like a stain on history that people tried to scrub away completely. Until now. A receipt dated April 11, 1851, didn't come from an archive or a library. It came from inside the stomach of a preserved crocodile shot by a rich hunter in 1922. Within a small sealed oilskin pouch was a single deed of sale for a young woman, just 19, described only as spirited, sold for 15 copper cents, the price of a single nail. It was more than a document. It was a message across time, a truth too heavy for history to completely bury. But it wasn't the small price that was shocking. It was the reason behind it and the man who paid it. That was what they would have killed to keep hidden. Who was this young woman worth less than a nail? What kind of strength ran through her blood that frightened powerful men? They tried to erase her with an insult. But truth never stays buried forever. It waits. And the story you are about to hear is how that truth clawed its way back to the surface. The official version is a lie. The whispers told in shadows, those are closer to what really happened. That courthouse in St. James Parish wasn't just a place of law, it was a stage. On that April morning, the men who gathered weren't there for business alone. They came to watch a ritual, a cruel public act meant to humiliate. Alistair Finch stood on the courthouse steps, a man whose name carried weight from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. His plantation, Belle Reve, was a kingdom built on sugar and human misery. And that day, he wasn't there to sell property. He was there to destroy a person. Her name was Hetty. When he called her name, silence fell thick as thunderclouds. He didn't want to just sell her. He wanted to make sure everyone saw her as worthless. He wanted the crowd to believe she was less than human, that even 15 cents was a generous price. Imagine standing on that block, surrounded by sneering faces, while the man who owned your life declared you worth less than the dust on his boots. This was no trade. It was punishment. Finch wanted to erase something she carried, a secret that lived inside her blood. He used the tools of his trade, the auction block, the coins, the paper, to perform a ritual of control. He believed that giving her a price so low would make her story die forever. He was wrong. The auctioneer, Morrow, a pale man with a face like spoiled milk, hesitated. Even for someone who sold children away from their mothers without flinching, this felt wrong. 15 cents was an insult to the system itself. Even in the brutal logic of slavery, a young woman of 19 would be worth hundreds, even thousands. The price made no sense. Was she sick? Cursed? Unstable? Finch wanted them to think all of that. He stood beside Morrow, posture rigid, eyes burning into Hetty. She was dressed not in rags, but in a torn silk gown that barely fit, a cruel joke. He wanted her to look ridiculous, monstrous. His stare pressed down like a weight, daring anyone to question him. He had arranged every detail. The crowd murmured, drawn in by the strangeness of it all. Men who had come to buy tools or livestock now found themselves watching something else, a story they would whisper about for years. The day Alistair Finch nearly gave away a girl. They thought it was madness or cruelty. They didn't know they were witnessing the final act of a hidden war, a battle over bloodlines, secrets, and power. At the center stood Hetty. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. Her face was calm, too calm. It wasn't the look of surrender, but of someone waiting for the next chapter to begin. When Morrow finally spoke, his voice cracked. 15 cents. Do I have a bid for the girl? Silence stretched. No one dared to move. To bid on her was to challenge Finch himself. The low price wasn't an invitation, it was a warning. Finch expected no sale. He wanted her left unsold, given to the parish for hard labor, a living example of disgrace. Then, a voice from the back broke the silence. 15 cents! Every head turned. A man stepped forward through the crowd, tall, sharply dressed, a stranger. His clothes were too fine for the humid square, and his eyes too sharp. He moved with quiet purpose. He walked straight to the block and placed 3 5-cent coins down. The sound of metal on wood echoed through the air. Finch froze. This wasn't in his plan. "Your name, sir?" Morrow asked. The man smiled slightly. "My name is Elias Thorne, and I believe the young woman is now mine." A quiet tension rippled through the crowd. Two powerful men locked eyes. Everyone felt that this was no ordinary transaction. There were rumors among the wealthy, whispers that a single drop of impure blood could taint a family forever. Finch's jaw tightened. "You are not from this parish," he said coldly. "What brings you here?" Thorne tilted his head, his tone dry. "I collect rare things, Mr. Finch. You were about to throw away something priceless. I consider it a bargain." The insult landed like a slap. Finch's face went pale with rage. He could let the sale stand and lose face, or reveal how much this girl truly mattered to him. "She's defective," Finch spat. "She suffers fits. She's lazy, worth exactly what I asked. A burden, nothing more." Thorne turned to Hetty, studying her calmly. "Every treasure has its keeper," he said softly. "Some burdens are worth carrying. The price is paid. Draw up the papers." Finch's plan had collapsed. As the deal was finalized, Thorne leaned toward Hetty and said quietly, "Your name is Hetty, but that's not the name you were born with, is it?" She looked at him for the first time. Truly looked, and something long dormant stirred in her eyes. They left the courthouse in silence. Thorne had a wagon waiting. He helped her up gently, without binding her wrists or shouting orders. He treated her not as property, but as something precious and fragile. As the wagon rolled away, Hetty could still feel Finch's eyes burning into her back, promising revenge. For years, she had felt that gaze, the constant pressure of being watched. But now, for the first time, she was moving away from it, towards something uncertain but different. Thorne was unlike any man she had met. He didn't want a servant or a plaything. He had another purpose. He had called himself a collector. But what had he collected in her? As they rode, memories of Belle Reeve filled her mind. Her mother, Celeste, the cook, who had always treated her with both love and fear. Celeste had secretly taught her to read and write, whispering lessons by candlelight. She used to say, "Your body is a temple, Hetty. Never forget the blood in your veins. It's older and stronger than any whip." Hetty hadn't understood. She only knew her height made her a target for Finch's cruelty. He never whipped her. He preferred humiliation. He made her stand in front of guests, calling her his unfortunate experiment. Now, sitting beside Thorne, her mother's words echoed. Could this man know about that blood? They camped deep in the bayou that night. Thorne built a small fire, offered her food and water, and said little. When the stars came out, he finally spoke. "Alistair Finch fears you," he said simply. Hetty said nothing. "He doesn't fear your strength or your mind," Thorne continued. "He fears your existence, what you represent. He tried to make the world see you as a monster because he knew that if anyone saw you for who you really are, his world would crumble." He stirred the fire, then asked quietly, "Your mother's name was Celeste, correct?" Hetty froze. No one outside the main house had known that. "Who are you?" she whispered. Thorne looked up, eyes glinting. "I'm a historian," he said. "I track what's been lost. Bloodlines, buried truths. And yours, Hetty, is the most extraordinary I've found." He told her that Finch had married into the Delacroix family, one of the oldest Creole families in Louisiana. known for a strange inherited trait, unusual size and strength, passed through the women's bloodline. It was seen as a mark of power, not shame. Hetty's heart pounded. Her body, once a source of ridicule, wasn't a curse. It was proof of her lineage. Finch's wife, Isabella Delacqua, had been barren. For 10 years, no child came, and with no heir, the estate's fortune would pass to relatives overseas. Finch refused to accept that, so he turned to Celeste, Hetty's mother, a woman who carried the Delacqua blood through an illegitimate branch of the family. It wasn't passion, it was calculation. He wanted to create an heir who would secure the fortune, but he underestimated that bloodline's strength. Instead of a son, he got Hetty, a living symbol of the very truth he feared most. Her body was the mark of that blood, the real heir, the one he tried to hide, the one he sold for 15 cents. And that, Thorne said, was why Finch could never let her live free. The sale, those 15 cents, was a desperate way to mark her and her bloodline as worthless, a public record declaring them broken. When Isabella died 2 years ago, Thorne continued, Alistair believed his secret was safe. Your mother died in childbirth. You were his property. Who would ever believe you? But he couldn't escape you. Every time he saw you, growing up under his roof, you reminded him of his failure. You were the rightful heir serving food in his dining room. He couldn't kill you. That would raise suspicion. So he tried to erase you instead, to sell you cheaply and hope you'd vanish forever. He never imagined someone like me was watching, someone who knew the Delacqua history, someone who had been searching for the lost branch of the family for years. Why? Hetty asked, her voice shaking. Why were you searching for me? Elias Thorne's expression hardened. The calm historian vanished, replaced by a man burning with purpose. Alistair Finch didn't just steal the Delacqua fortune. He robbed my family's legacy. That distant cousin in France, he was my grandfather. Finch used your mother to forge a false heir and cut my family out completely. I'm not just a historian, Hetty. I'm a hunter. I've been chasing Alistair Finch for 10 years. He took what was mine, and you're the key I'll use to take it back. The fire popped, breaking the silence that hung heavy around them. Hetty was no longer a servant. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She had become a weapon, owned now by a man just as cold and cunning as the one she had escaped. If you've listened this far, you're no longer just a bystander, you're a witness. Comment, "Truth has a price" below, and show that you're paying attention. You're not just watching a story unfold, you're part of a truth that was nearly erased. She looked across the fire and finally saw him clearly. Elias Thorne was no savior. He was another master, but with a different goal. Where Alistair had tried to destroy her to protect a lie, Elias planned to use her to reclaim the truth. She was a pawn in a battle that had stretched through generations, a living key to a hidden treasure. Her feelings, her hopes, her life meant nothing to the game of greed and power played by men like these. She had been locked in Beliv, and now she was trapped again inside Thorne's golden cage of revenge. "What do you want from me?" she asked in a quiet, steady voice. She was done with fear. Now she only wanted to understand the new prison she was in. "I want your testimony," Thorne said simply. "But not here. Not in Louisiana, where Finch controls judges and lawmakers. I'm taking you to New York. I have connections there. Lawyers skilled in inheritance law, men not swayed by Southern money. We'll file a case against Finch's estate. We'll use your presence, your mother's story, everything, to prove his fraud. We'll take it all from him." It sounded simple, almost too neat. A courtroom fight far from home. But Hetty knew better. Finch would never surrender quietly. He would send men. He would lie, cheat, and kill to keep what he had stolen. The journey to New York would be dangerous. "And what about me?" Hetty asked sharply. When you win your fortune, what happens to me? A house? A small payment? Or will you toss me aside when it's over?" Thorn looked surprised. He had expected thanks, maybe submission, not challenge. He studied her, a flicker of respect crossing his face. "You'll have your freedom," he said. "Legal, permanent freedom. And 10% of the Delacqua estate. You'll be one of the richest free women of color in America. You can live anywhere, do anything, become whoever you wish. That's my promise." The journey north began soon after. Thorn moved carefully, avoiding main roads, slipping through forests and hidden trails. He had allies, a secret network of abolitionists and sympathetic safe houses that offered food and rest without question. It was clear this wasn't his first secret mission. With each mile, Hetty felt something shift inside her. The heavy weight of Finch's world slowly faded, replaced by fear mixed with a strange kind of excitement. Thorn began to teach her. Their nights were long, filled with lessons about the world beyond the sugar fields, the politics of the North, the abolitionist movement, and the tangled web of money and power that ruled the nation. He was molding her, sharpening her mind. She was not just a pawn now, she was being trained to stand with authority. He made her memorize the Delacqua history, drilled her on manners and speech. "When we enter that courtroom," he told her firmly, "you will not be a former slave. You will be Delacqua. Your presence will be our strongest proof." He watched her closely, noticing every small thing. One evening, as she brushed her hair near the fire, he paused. Holding a strand up to the light, he studied the reddish streaks. Then he took her hand and pointed to the crescent-shaped birthmark. "It's all here," he said quietly. "The truth is written in your skin." Hetty shivered. He no longer saw her as a tool. She was becoming his obsession, as Finch's hate once was. Picture an old plantation ledger. Most entries list names beside prices. But one line is different. A woman's name. Beside it, a hand-drawn symbol, a serpent eating its own tail. A secret mark that could not be sold, only hidden. They reached Tennessee more than a month later when danger finally found them. At a small trading post, Thorn told her to stay in the wagon, but a bounty hunter with a lazy eye noticed her. To him, she looked like a runaway, worth a big reward. He and 2 partners trapped the wagon at dusk. "That's a fine piece of property," the man said, resting his hand on his gun. "Looks like a runaway from Louisiana. $2,000 reward." Thorn didn't move. "You've made a mistake," he said calmly. "She's not who you think, and I'm not a man you want to cross." The hunter laughed and reached for his pistol. Before he could fire, Thorn moved like lightning. A knife flashed, cutting the man's wrist. The gun dropped. Thorn drew his revolver and fired twice. Within seconds, all 3 men were down. He cleaned his blade and turned to Hetty. "Alistair's reach is long," he said quietly. "We must stay alert." Hetty's heart pounded. This was the man she traveled with, cold, quick, and deadly. The bounty hunter's attack changed everything. Their mission wasn't just legal now, it was survival. Finch would send more, hunters, officials, killers. Thorn began teaching her to defend herself, how to load, aim, and fire without hesitation. "I can't protect you every moment," he said. "If the time comes, you can't hesitate. They will show no mercy. You must do the same." The feel of the cold gun, the kick against her hand, the sharp smell of gunpowder, these became part of her new life. The gentle servant girl from Belle was gone. In her place stood someone harder, wiser, and unbreakable. Her anger, once buried, became her strength. Her survival depended not on Thorn, but on her own will. He was her ally, not her savior. He used her for his revenge, and she would use him for her freedom. Her goal was no longer just escape. It was justice, or something darker. She wanted revenge. She wanted to see the plantation burn. She wanted to face Alistair not as a possession, but as the truth that would destroy him. The road north forged her into what Thorne wanted, but he made the same mistake Finch had. He thought he could shape her. He didn't see that the weapon he was forging had a mind of its own. One cold night in the Appalachian Mountains, she tested him. "You said your grandfather was the cousin in France," she said. "You said Finch stole your family's fortune, but you don't sound French. You move like a man who belongs to this land. Who are you really, stranger?" He stared into the fire for a long time before speaking. "My name isn't what I told you," he said at last. "That was only a cover. I wasn't raised in France. My grandfather lost the old inheritance before I was born. We came back to America, broke and disgraced. I grew up on the streets of Philadelphia, an orphan with nothing but a story about a sugar king who stole our legacy." He poked at the fire with a stick. "I learned other trades, how to find people, how to make them talk, how to kill when I had to. I used the money I earned in the shadows to fund my private war against Finch. I'm not some nobleman trying to reclaim a birthright. I'm a ghost, a man from the gutter collecting a debt that's 2 generations overdue. Finch thinks he's being hunted by a rival. He doesn't realize he's being haunted by his own sins." Now Hedy understood. His drive wasn't about wealth. It was about vengeance, about restoring his family's lost name. That made him more dangerous, because money can buy off most men, but not one chasing his own soul. Far away in Belle Reve, Alistair Finch sat awake in his study. A map of the United States lay before him, pins marking their route north. He hadn't slept in days. He wasn't afraid. He was furious. His experiment, his perfect illusion of control, had failed. The ghost from the past, the forgotten cousin's bloodline, had returned. He cursed himself for underestimating his enemy. But most of all, he hated the woman. To him, she was a creature of betrayal, a mistake now turned against its maker. That 15-cent sale was supposed to end her story, not begin his downfall. He picked up his pen and wrote a letter to his agent in New York, a man who moved easily between politics and crime. The order was simple: find them, and when you do, erase them both. When Hedy and Thorne finally reached New York in late autumn of 1851, the city was overwhelming, crowded, smoky, alive with energy. For someone who had grown up in silence and fear, it felt like stepping into another world. People from everywhere, voices in every language, the pulse of ambition and struggle. It was dizzying. They stayed in a quiet boarding house under the guise of a widower and his ward. Thorne wasted no time meeting with his legal team, 2 determined abolitionist lawyers. When she entered their office for the first time, she felt something new. The room smelled of paper and ink, filled with books and maps. The men looked at her not with curiosity, but respect. For the first time, she dared to feel it. Hope. They worked for weeks, preparing her story. She spoke again and again about Belle Reve, her mother, the plantation, the man who claimed to own her. She showed them her mark, her hair's red streak, and for the first time, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the truth could finally be enough. The lawyers then handed her the papers the stranger had spent years gathering. Old parish baptism records, letters from the Marquis that mentioned his hidden family, and a sworn statement from a disgraced doctor who had treated the owner's wife and could confirm her barrenness. The evidence was solid. They had a real claim. But as the legal engine began to turn, the woman noticed a shift in the stranger. His aim was almost complete. The hunter was closing on his prey, and he started to see her in a new light. The careful training and fierce focus softened into something else, something more personal. One evening, he brought her a present, a new dress. Not a costume for a part she was performing, but a plain, elegant gown of dark blue velvet. "The woman who walks into that courtroom should look like herself," he said softly. "Not the person I tried to shape, but the person you have become." It was the first time he had seen her as her own person, separate from the role in his scheme, and in its way it was more dangerous than any of the bounty hunters they had met on the road. The lawsuit was filed. The news burst into the high societies of New York and New Orleans like an explosion. The tale was explosive. A Louisiana sugar baron accused of fraud by a mysterious woman claiming to be the secret heir to the Delacroix fortune. A woman who until recently had been his slave. The plantation owner's reply was swift and brutal. He denied everything. Through his lawyers, he painted the woman as delusional, manipulative, a runaway, and he called the stranger a fraud and a kidnapper. He produced many sworn statements from prominent Louisiana figures claiming the woman suffered a glandular disorder and mental problems. He used his great wealth to start a public relations assault, seeding friendly papers with stories that made him look like the victim of a malicious northern scheme. But behind the scenes, he was using other means. The men he had sent to erase them had failed. Now he would rely on a subtler kind of ruin. One morning, a lawyer arrived at the boarding house, his face ashen. "There's been a fire at the county records office in St. James Parish," he said, voice tight. "The whole wing with birth and baptism records from before 1840 is gone, including the records of the woman's mother. It was a crushing blow. A key piece of their proof had been destroyed, turned to ash. It was arson, of course, hard to trace, but clearly the act of the plantation owner. He was wiping out the past, burning the paper trail that led back to the truth." The woman felt cold dread. They were fighting a man who could command fire from far away, a man who could erase history with one order. The stranger, though, almost seemed energized by the setback. "He's desperate," he said, a grim smile touching his lips. "He wouldn't do this if he weren't afraid. He's showing his hand. That's good." She looked at him and saw a dangerous light in his eyes. He was taking pleasure in the hunt, the danger, the stakes. This was his element. He belonged to the shadows, and the plantation owner had invited him into a war fought in darkness. The woman realized she was stuck between two monsters, one who wanted to erase her and one who would risk her life to win his battle, and the line between them grew thinner each day. The trial date was set. Legal sparring increased. The owner's attorneys filed motion after motion to dismiss the case. But the abolitionist lawyers were experts, parrying every attack. The case became a cause in New York, a symbol of the moral rot of the Southern slave system. Abolitionist groups rallied, holding fundraisers and printing pamphlets telling the woman's story. She became a symbol, a reluctant figure in a struggle much larger than her own life. She was forced into society events to be shown to wealthy northern patrons who looked at her with pity and curiosity. They treated her as an object, a victim to be rescued. They did not see the woman who could handle a pistol, who had watched men die on a forest floor. They did not see the cold rage that now lived at her core. She played the role they expected, speaking softly, her eyes lowered. But inside she watched and learned. She studied how these powerful people moved, the way they used language as weapon and shield. She learned the rules of their world, the world she meant to overturn. The stranger was always beside her, guide and guard in this strange new place. Their bond had become a tangled knot of need and doubt. There were moments of real connection, of shared weakness facing a common enemy, and sometimes she caught him looking at her with that old calculating look, reminding her she was still, to him, an investment. One night he found her staring from the parlor window at the gaslit street. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "I'm thinking about your 10%, she said without turning, "and I think it's not enough." He was silent. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "I want Belle Rev," she said, voice cold and clear as ice. "When this is done, I don't want money. I want the land. I want the house. I want to stand in the plantation owner's study as the mistress of that place. I want the deed to the land where my mother was kept. I want him to know his kingdom now belongs to the defect he bought for 15 cents. The stranger was stunned. He had made an instrument. Now that instrument named its price, a demand he had never expected, an old whispered claim. They say that just before the Civil War, there was a hidden market for secrets among the elite, not only political or financial information, but private scandals. Slave owners paid fortunes for the genealogical weaknesses of rivals, a hidden black ancestor, an illegitimate child, a supposed hereditary illness. These secrets were weapons traded in closed rooms, able to topple fortunes with one well-placed whisper. The trial opened on a cold January morning, 1852. The courtroom was full. Reporters from as far as London had come for the spectacle. Alistair Finch sat with his expensive lawyers. He looked older, worn by the northern cold and the strain of the suit. When he saw Hetty enter, hatred hardened his face. Hetty, in a simple blue velvet dress, walked to the stand with calm, silencing the room. She was not the timid, broken figure Finch had painted. She was Hetty d'Aqua, ready to claim what was hers. Arthur Brentwood guided her testimony. She spoke clearly and firmly, her voice steady. She told of her life and of her mother, Finch's cruelty and obsession. She did not weep. She did not beg for mercy. She stated the facts. Her dignity filled the room. Then came cross-examination. Finch's lead counsel, a harsh man called Caleb Blackwood, came forward. His aim was simple: destroy Hetty's credibility, label her a liar and fantasist. "Miss Hetty," he began in a sneering tone, "you claim descent from a noble French family, yet you were born a slave. How do you reconcile those identities?" "I do not need to reconcile them," Hetty replied firmly. "Both are true. One is my blood. The other is the law that enslaved me." "The law was wrong," the courtroom murmured. Blackwood faltered at her bluntness. He pressed, looking for a contradiction. He brought up her physical condition, citing medical writings about glandular disorders and inherited madness. "Isn't it true, Miss Hetty, that you suffered delusions and invented this story to escape servitude?" Hetty faced the jury. "The only fantasy here is that any man could own another human. The only delusion is believing a person's worth equals skin color or birth. I know who I am. The real question is, does Mr. Finch?" It was a masterful moment. Every attack bounced off, exposing the moral rot behind her accuser's view. Elias Thorne watched in the gallery, astonished. He had always intended to use her as a tool, but he had not imagined she would wield herself with such force. The turning point came from an unexpected place. Thorne's investigators found an old Creole midwife named Adelaide in a charity hospital in New Orleans, dying of consumption. She had attended Isabella d'Aqua. The Brightwood brothers secured her sworn statement just days before she died. Theodore Brentwood read the deposition aloud. Adelaide's testimony was devastating. She described Isabella's miscarriages and the desperate treatments Finch forced on his wife. Then she told of the night Hetty was born. "Mr. Finch came to me," Adelaide said. "He told me Celeste, the cook's daughter, was in labor. He forced me to attend her in secret and threatened my family if I spoke. The child was born healthy, a girl. I saw the mark on her hand, the D'Aqua crescent. Finch took the child and warned me to forget what I had seen. He paid me with gold and told me to leave the parish that night." Finch sat pale at the defense table. It was truth spoken from beyond, a voice from the past condemning him. The final proof was Hetty herself. Arthur Brightwood asked her to face the jury. "Look at this woman," he said with feeling. "Her bearing, her dignity. The defense wants you to believe she is defective, but you see the truth. She is the living d'Aqua legacy. Blood does not lie. Truth does not lie. Finch is a thief who built his wealth on stolen lives and stolen history. The courtroom held its breath. In that silence, everyone saw the outcome. The verdict was formal. The jury ruled for Hetty, confirming her claim to the Dilquah line and the estate. Finch was ruined. He was ordered to hand over all his assets, including the Belvey plantation, to Hetty. A broken man, he left the court without meeting anyone. That evening, Thorne visited Hetty at her boarding house. The victory felt strange and hollow. The fight was won, but the price had been high. "You were incredible," he said, voice raw. "I knew you were key. I never guessed how powerful you could be." "Draw up the papers," Hetty said, her back turned. "Transfer Bell to my name and arrange for my legal freedom." "Of course," he replied, "and the remaining 10% of the estate." "I don't want it," she said, turning to him. "What?" He was shocked. "Money means nothing to me. It's your inheritance, your payment for a life in the shadows. Keep it." He studied her, and for the first time he saw the lonely, driven person she had always been. "What will you do now?" he asked quietly. "I'm going back to Louisiana," she answered. "Back to Bellevue. I will tear down the sugar fields, take apart the house brick by brick, and build something new. A school, a home for the children of those Finch enslaved. I will use the Dakwa fortune to undo the wrong it was built on." It was such a bold plan that it left him speechless. He had planned small revenge. She planned to remake the world. "Finch won't let you," he warned. "He may be ruined, but he still has reach. He will try to stop you." "I know," she said. "That's why you're coming with me." He looked at her. "What are you offering me?" "I'm offering a purpose beyond revenge," she said softly. "A fight worth fighting. Be my general, my protector, my partner." She offered him a path to redemption, a way out of the darkness that had consumed him for so long. A chilling final image appeared in a letter found in Finch's handwriting, dated the day after the verdict, addressed to a physician in Baltimore. It read only, "The genetic experiment has become sentient and hostile. It must be neutralized. Cost is no object." Finch did not fade away. 2 weeks later, as Thorne finalized the transfer, a hired thug tried to stab Hetty on a New York street. Thorne stopped him with the same ruthless skill he had shown in Tennessee. It was Finch's warning. The war was not over. It had changed into a deadlier phase. Thorne accepted Hetty's offer. Protecting her and her vision gave him new purpose. They were an odd pair. The rightful heir raised a slave, the dispossessed heir trained as an assassin. Both survivors, both shaped by injustice, they returned to Louisiana not in secret, but as the new owners of Bellevue. They hired a small force of trusted men, knowing their arrival would spark resistance. When Hetty rode through Bell's gates, she was not the same woman who left months before. She was the estate's mistress. Those once enslaved watched in stunned silence. One of their own had come back, not in chains but as a liberator. Hetty gathered everyone in the main square and stood on the grand house steps, once used by Finch, to display her. "You are all free," she declared. "This is no longer a plantation. This is a community. You will be paid fairly. Your children will be educated. This land, once stolen and tilled by stolen labor, will now serve you." It was a revolution. One woman armed with legal power and iron will was dismantling the old South's machinery. Finch, watching from the shadows, would not accept it. The first months at Bell were tense. Hetty and Thorne began the slow change. Labor contracts were written, a school opened in an empty storehouse, and teachers were brought from the north. Hetty worked without rest, trying to heal a land poisoned by slavery. Thorne handled security, vetted workers, and faced hostile local officials who saw Hetty's plans as a threat. Night riders sometimes circled, firing to intimidate them. But Thorne's men were ready, and the attacks never escalated. It was a standoff. Yet Hetty knew it could not last. Finch had vanished after the trial. but his presence was a constant threat. The fear proved real one morning when a perimeter guard found a strange object tied to the front gate, a dead raven clutching a small, dried sugarcane stalk. It was an old curse symbol, a message of death. Thorne knew it at once. It was the mark of a certain assassin, a master of poisons and disease, known in New Orleans' underworld as Lorbo the Crow. Finch had upped the stakes. He had hired a specialist. "We must leave," Thorne said, tense. "He can't be stopped. He can reach anyone." "No," Hetty said, determination steady. "I will not flee my home. This is where we stand. If Finch wants war, we will fight on our terms, here on our land." She was no longer afraid. The 15-cent slave had become a queen and would not abandon her realm. She looked at Thorne with the same fierce fire he had seen in court. "Find this crow," she said, "and stop him before he reaches us." The hunt for Lorbo turned Belle into a fortress. Thorne's caution, which had helped on the road, now became their daily rule. Food was tested for poison. Water came from a guarded well. Hetty was never left alone. The hopeful community she wanted had become an armed camp. The strain was huge. The former slaves, now free laborers, lived under constant dread. The dream of a new life was shadowed by sudden death's threat. Hetty saw the worry on their faces, and it hardened her resolve against Alistair Finch. He wasn't just trying to kill her. He wanted to crush her vision to prove a place like Belle Reve could not survive. The breakthrough came from a Thorne contact in New Orleans, a rumor about a disgraced Baltimore doctor, an expert in tropical diseases, seen with a man like Finch. The doctor was known for making rare toxins and infectious agents for rich clients. Thorne understood the danger. Lorbo would not use knives or guns. He meant to unleash biology itself. Thorne and a small team rode for New Orleans that night. It was a desperate risk. They had to stop the crow before he released his poison. While Thorne was away, Hetty led Belle Reve's defense. She armed workers, set watches, and turned the schoolhouse into a makeshift infirmary. She prepared for the worst. 3 days passed in dread. On the 4th night, a lone rider returned to the gates. It was Thorne, hurt and with his arm in a sling, but alive. He carried a small sealed lead box tied to his saddle. "I found him," Thorne said, voice tight. He had tracked Lorbo to a swamp lab. The assassin was making a vial of weaponized cholera, enough to taint the whole water supply. "Is he?" Hetty began. "He is no longer a danger," Thorne cut in, "nor is the Baltimore doctor, but this matters most." He handed her a letter taken from the lab, from Alistair Finch. It outlined the plan to poison Belle Reve and included instructions for Lorbo's next target, Elias Thorne himself. But the crucial part revealed Finch's current spot, a secluded island off Florida, where he hid under a false name, waiting to see if they died. They had him. A final journal entry from Finch read like a confession. They say, "God works in mysterious ways." I disagree. God is a scientist and the world his lab. He experiments, he creates, he discards what fails. I have only ever wanted to be like him, to tend a perfect garden. My mistake was not the pruning, it was underestimating the weed's will to live, a fatal error. Hetty and Thorne chose to end it. They could not spend life waiting for the next assassin. They could not build a future on fear. They had to cut off the head of the snake. Leaving Belle in a trusted counsel's hands, they sailed for Florida. This time, they were not hunted. They were hunters. Finch's Island was easy to find, a small private paradise guarded by a few mercenaries. But Thorne was a master at slipping in.